Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host, Kushalmehra. So, today's podcast is about this recent news that has been um, shared with us, where Reliance Jio and Bharti Airtel, both companies, had signed agreements with SpaceX to distribute Starlink satellite internet services in India. So this is what the deal is around. It involves, and I'm quoting the article, selling Starlink's equipment through Jio and Airtel's retail networks, while Jio will also provide customer service, installation, and activation support. This has led to a slew of discussions where a lot of questions have been raised behind the wisdom of allowing the companies of Elon Musk entry into India. Uh, some questions were related to market economics and the principles of market economics. Some questions were related to technology transfer. Some questions were related to national security issues and a host of things. So Tushar at that time had written this detailed thread about this entire issue, which I have put up on the screen right now. Audio listeners, you can't watch it right now, but he had said that. So today's podcast is basically going to deal with all those issues one by one. I don't have any particular questions. I'm going to let Tushar make the flow of this discussion, and I will come in as and when I want to. So Tushar, welcome, and over to you.
Thanks. Look, I'll start off with a couple of disclaimers. One, because a lot of people will ask that I usually comment on politics and policy. So suddenly I'm quoting physics and subjects of engineering. I have studied them. Before I took the plunge into journalism, I had studied engineering. I'd worked 4 years as an IT consultant. But again, this is not about engineering. To understand Starlink, you don't need to be a rocket scientist. You don't even need to be an engineer. You just need to get a grasp or probably recall the physics you studied in class 10th and 12th. And disclaimer number two, Kushal, I can't stress this enough, but the kind of scientific discourse that has been going on against Starlink and the government, it's, for the lack of a better word, embarrassing to see people make all sorts of lofty comments against the government that, oh, you're allowing Starlink in India, this will happen, that will happen, you've surrendered, you've done this. I mean, please understand what Starlink is. A lot of people were saying that, oh, we have geostationary satellites. Why do we need these Starlink satellites? I mean, embarrassing, right? Let's start with the basics first, and I'll assume a basic understanding of things like frequency, bandwidth, latency on the part of the reader. I'll assume that you understand what geostationary satellites are, what low Earth orbit satellites are. Nevertheless, when we look at Starlink, as of date, it has around 7,000, 8,000 satellites in the low Earth orbit. This ranges from 200 to 2,000 kilometer above the Earth's surface, which is pretty low. That's why it's called the low Earth orbit, LEO, as we call it. Starlink is at a height of 550 kilometers. The satellite mesh, as Elon Musk calls it, is at a height of 550 kilometers. But geostationary satellites are at a height of 35,786 kilometers. Very precise, very exact. There are fixed slots for geostationary satellites. These are the satellites that help you with your weather tracking, with your satellite mapping, things like that. And they appear to be geostationary because they're tuned to the Earth's rotation. And there are fixed number of slots you can have for geostationary satellites. The low Earth orbit, however, does not have any such problems. You can have as many orbital planes as you want. And this is where Starlink is right now floating around 7,000. But more importantly, it's about the signals. When we talk about satellites, it's about the data uplink and downlink, the communication. If you're going higher, of course, it will take far more time for the signal to travel. So if you're talking a geostationary satellite, we are talking 240 milliseconds of latency. If you're talking Starlink, on the contrary, you're talking about latency of 4 milliseconds. Look at the difference. The latency in a Starlink satellite is 1/60th than that in a geostationary satellite because it's at a lower height. Now, because there is less latency, it's ideal for satellite communication, satellite internet. Now, uh, uh, if you talk about the signal travel time, sorry, that was 240, and the signal travel time is 4 ms. Now, if you talk about the latency, now for those who don't understand, latency is the delay, the lag you feel sometimes while browsing the internet. If you're going to depend on geostationary satellites, that's going to be as high as 600 to 700 ms. If you're looking at Starlink satellites, that's 20 to 40 ms. So, you need to get this basics in order. Now, the first thing a lot of people have been asking, why do we need Starlink? One, the most basic answer is you're going to get internet in remote corners of the country. Now, to give you one simple example, if you go to Pengongso, it's not very profitable to get telecom towers there for any company, any telecom company. The first question, oh, we have 4G, 5G, broadband, Wi-Fi, everything in our cities. Why do we need Starlink? Yes, you don't. You actually don't. From a retail commercial point of view, you do not. But there are people who need it. And that is why Starlink really works. It taps into the most inaccessible parts of the world. Number one. Number two, it's about the technology. When you're talking Starlink, you're talking of an internet service provider that is working in complete isolation with the terrestrial networks. It has no link to any of them. Its entire infrastructure works in isolation when it comes to the ISPs like Geo or Airtel or this cellular network, their towers ecosystem, everything. Right? So a lot of people said, one, do we really need Starlink? Yes, it's a good technology to have. Why don't we need it? It's like saying, oh, do we need mobile phones? We already have STDs and landlines. This go back to the early 90s. Do we really need mobile phones? Yes, we did need them. And it has changed how we communicate. It has ushered a digital economy 30 years later as more and more evolution happened. So first things first. Number two, a lot of people said, why can't we make this in India? Please understand, when you're looking at Starlink, you're looking at a mesh of 7 to 8,000 satellites right now live in space. Live. ISRO does not even have a competitive budget. ISRO is what? $1.5 billion per year? 12,000 crore rupees roughly? Starlink, until date, has spent $20 billion. Now, do we have that kind of money? Let's assume we have. Can ISRO, jump the gun, manufacture satellites, 7,000 satellites from the word go? No, they cannot. There's a lot of research that is required. The kind of technology these satellites deploy. Let's talk about the laser technology, the way they communicate with each other. It's called the ISLs, interlinking of satellites through lasers. That's working on a different frequency band altogether. The E frequency band, 70 gigahertz to 80 gigahertz. Are Indians right now in a position to manufacture those satellites? No. But let's say you can. Let's, for the sake of argument, say that Elon Musk makes all his patents public, apart from the ones which already are, and you can start manufacturing those satellites. You need to put them in the air. Manufacturing is no good until you can't get them up. For that, you need reusable rockets. Now, do we have a reusable rocket functioning right now? No. The ISRO is working on it. It's working on an LGLV, next gen launch vehicle. It's working on a reusable launch vehicle as well. On two fronts, it's working there. But it's still very early days. It's still very early days. We're not even having a test flight scheduled as of now. But let's assume you have them. Do you have the payload capacity? When you're looking at Starlink's Falcon 9, 22,800 kilograms capacity of payload capacity we are talking about, the amount of weight it can carry up to the low Earth orbit. Do we have that at ISRO right now? Not really. PSLV at best gives you 1,500 kilograms for the LEO. GSLV will give you 8,000 kilogram. SSLV will give you 500 kilogram. But the next gen launch vehicle will give you 20 to 30 tons. But that's still 10 years away, at least 10 years away, the next gen launch vehicle. So I'm going with the argument that you can manufacture them. You can even sort of crack the technology. But how do you put them in the air? It's not profitable right now for ISRO to go into that fray. But then people said, why not Ayrton and Jio invest that capital? Mota bhai, paisa kyun nahi dalte? Innovators don't have will in India. The mindset is missing. Please understand, by the commercials, by the virtue of commercials, Starlink is not profitable for a market like India. Elon Musk wants the access to the Indian market from a commercial point of view, understandable. Even Apple wanted it. Apple does not have a very high smartphone market share. Probably just now it has gotten to double digits. But do you really expect Airtel, which clocked a profit of around 7,500 crore rupees, and Jio, Reliance Jio, the telecom arm of Jio, which clocked the profit of rupees 20,000 crore, they leave everything aside and invest in something like this? Let's say they make that decision. Let's say they call for it. But do you really expect telecom companies to become satellite companies overnight? It can't really happen. So that was what my thread was about. But I only focused on the commercial part then. Right. But everything you're reading about Starlink on social media right now, all those doomsday theories, they all are wrong for one simple reason. No one is talking about the frequency at which Starlink operates. No one is talking about the signal and how it can be jammed. Everyone has suddenly thought, oh, there is a user terminal, there is a ground station, there is a satellite up in the up in the sky. How will the government control it? And Elon Musk, in his exuberance, once made this tweet that Starlink can work without ground stations. Now, people exaggerated that claim too. That, oh, if there are no ground stations, how will there be a gateway, or what will be the sort of access point in India? So people, he can have a free run. That's not how it works. What he meant was that right now, if there are 300 ground stations required all around the globe, in the future, that number might come down to 30 or 40 as satellites start talking to each other. And we'll get into every aspect one by one. But for now, to sum it up, if you imagine Starlink, imagine three components. You are at your home, think of a laptop sized dish, a portable dish that is your user terminal. That is what you will use to connect to a Starlink satellite. When you send a request, play this YouTube video, your user terminal sends a signal to the satellite, which is hovering right now above your house, 550 kilometers up above. That satellite then relays that signal to the nearest ground station. That ground station, through fibers, connects it to the data centers across the globe where it finds the video, plays, sends it back, relays it to the satellite relays it back to your user terminal, and you get to have the video. All this happens in milliseconds. And this has a latency of 4 milliseconds, a travel, or rather 20 to 40 milliseconds. That's all. That's very fast. Because the frequency at which this happens, there are frequency bands. You all must be aware about it. There are low frequency bands, high frequency bands, very high frequency bands. Starlink, as of today, uses the Ku and the Ka frequency band. The Ku is working at 12 gigahertz to 18 gigahertz. When you're looking at the Ka band, it's at 26 gigahertz to 40 gigahertz. So all your communication happens in those frequencies. Other frequencies are used for satellite communication, phone communication. You can look up. It's an entire 21, 22 bands and how they function. But for now, if you think Starlink, think of two bands, Ku band and the Ka band. That's all.
So I have a question here. All
Please.
these, so now people say you use the example of Leh Ladakh and Pangong and all those. So what about the potential of misuse in border areas and stuff like that?
Now, there is a thing called global GMPS license, as we call it. I'm just going to give you the full form of it. Global Mobile, uh, something on those lines, GMPS. I can't recall right now. If Starlink has to operate in India, it needs a GMPS license. Now, it's not going to get any headway, any room in India without a GMPS license. That's mandatory by the Department of Telecommunication and in Space, which is the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center. Now, what is GMPS? GMPS says that fine, you have satellites in the air, you have your ground stations, you have your user terminals, but I, as the government, want to have a know-how of how data is going in and out. What are people talking about? It's not to spy on you. It's all encrypted. Please, before someone spooks another conspiracy theory. But this is where a gateway comes into play. Now, for instance, there is a Mumbai gateway. That there is a gateway that has been set up by Starlink in India, from which the entire traffic will pass. Now, you are sitting in Delhi. You make a request. I want to play this video. The request is sent from your user terminal to the satellite. The satellite then has to mandatorily relay it back to your gateway. Don't think of GMPS as a gateway. It's not a physical gateway. We are talking of a different gateway, which is mandatory under the GMPS. Then the Mumbai gateway relays it to the data center, which then relays it back to Mumbai. The Mumbai gateway then relays it back to the satellite, and that sends it back to Delhi. Now, for the ones confused, yes, the gateway is an additional step in the data transmission, but that is how India's regulations are. You need to have a GMPS license, right? And if you don't have a GMPS license, you can't operate. That's a deal breaker. And as the news reports go, Musk has agreed to it. GMPS is Global Mobile Personal Communication by Satellite. Global Mobile Personal Communication by Satellite. Pardon me, I couldn't recall it. But then people have more questions. What happens in the border zones? Now, GMPS makes a mandatory border buffer zone. The government was also smart. They realized, yeah, this can be misused in the borders. This can be easily sort of, by the time we have an understanding of what kind of traffic is flowing through or what kind of chatter is happening over the internet, the terrorists will have a free run. So the GMPS comes with a condition. There has to be a border buffer zone, 10 to 50 kilometer wide, 50. Depending on the risk capacity, the government will dictate to Starlink that this is the border buffer zone. It may vary for, say, Rajasthan to Kashmir. In Rajasthan, it might be 10 kilometers. Because you go 50 kilometers, there are small towns. For instance, in Rajasthan, if you're looking at 50 kilometers, you are sort of encompassing a city like Bikaner. And that can sort of render the Starlink capacity over there useless. But if you're talking Kashmir, 10 kilometers is a lot of distance. It's covering Uri, for instance, right? So the government will tell Starlink, you need to, in the terminals that are sold in India via Jio and Airtel, need to update your firmware with the coordinates of the border buffer zone, that if a terminal enters these coordinates, the firmware will disable the connection within it. Every user terminal, the laptop box we spoke about that you will keep inside your home, has a firmware installed by Starlink, like any of your routers, average routers. Every user terminal has a unique ID, which will be your identifier. Again, not for spying, but it's a record. Your telecom companies also have it. Your SIM also has an identification number. Very basic stuff. So the government's border buffer zone under GMPS is that 10 to 50 kilometers across borders, I do not want Starlink to work, or I do not want any satellite com to work. It's not just exclusive for Starlink. If you start a satellite communication company tomorrow, you'll also have to go by it. That's the border situation taken care of. But let's now imagine a scenario. Let's say Kushal is an army officer, for example. He finds that someone in Kashmir has a Starlink user terminal that is not being bought in India, that's been smuggled through Pakistan. Okay. Now that user terminal will not have that firmware because it's been smuggled, it's been sold in Pakistan. It has a different firmware altogether. And that user terminal, yes, will connect to the satellite. It will work. This is where something like radio frequency jamming comes into play. Believe it or not, security agencies monitor critical frequencies for traffic, for chatter. It's very basic stuff. What I'm telling you is no rocket science, but unfortunately, it comes across as rocket science given the discourse on social media. There is this thing called RF jamming, and DRDO has enough jammers to work on all frequencies from 5 MHz to 40 gigahertz, from 5 megahertz to 40 gigahertz, giga, okay? That can just jam the frequencies there. So let's say your user terminal is sending signals to a satellite, it's sent, well and good. If the satellite has to beam that signal back to your user terminal, these jammers cloud those frequencies. There's a lot of disturbance, and your user terminal cannot detect the signal correctly. Think of it as two people talking across a room, and then suddenly 20 people are thrown into the same room and they are creating a lot of noise. They're literally shouting, and the two people standing apart in the room on one corner and the other corner can't hear each other. That's jamming, radio frequency jamming. That's how this works. So when you talk about the border area misuse, let's talk of Pengongso, for instance. I don't think Starlink will work in Pengongso to begin with. Manipur people were saying, oh, Starlink device has been found. Yes, but it won't work there. And there are chances that those uh, terrorists who were caught in Manipur were probably caught because their radio frequency was being monitored. It was eventually jammed and they were caught.
बॉर्डर पे कभी मोबाइल सिग्नल नहीं मिलता है, सब जैम्ड होता है. बॉर्डर पे अभी कभी जाओ, बॉर्डर पे जाओगे तो सडनली तुम्हारा मोबाइल सिग्नल बंद हो जाता है. You don't get anything.
Now, let me Kushal, everyone's first question was kill switch. कि भाई इसको मारेंगे कैसे, मारना पड़े अगर. सबका यही था कि if you have to kill it, how do you kill it? Now that's a legitimate question. At any given point, there will be 250 to 300 Starlink satellites over India. When you think Starlink satellites, don't think of them as stationary satellites. Please, first thing.
Moving.
At 550 kilometers above the Earth's surface, the low Earth orbit, LEO, the atmospheric drag is just far too much for satellites to remain stationary for a long while. They continue to adjust their course within their orbital plane, within the coordinates they're to work in, but they cannot be stationary. Some people said, oh, we can have just 70 to 100 satellites all over India, and that should be enough to have our own satellite comm. ISRO will do it in 2 years. We are good to go. No, that's not how satellite communication works. Your satellite is, let's say, the internet signal you send from your user terminal to a satellite above. That's the satellite that is hovering over your house right now. That's not necessarily the satellite that will be there in the next 5 minutes. This keeps changing. Please understand, it's moving. The traffic continuously moves, right? So at any given point over India, there will be 280, 250 to 300 satellites. At any given point, the probability is 15 to 30 satellites over my head, which can catch the signal from my user terminal. Now, what if I have to jam a signal in, let's say, either of the states in India? It's very simple. You use jammers. You have a truck, think of a truck, a generator part jammer working on it, and you'll have jammers. DRDO publicly has a Samvad series jammers which capture frequencies from 1.5 megahertz to 40 gigahertz. You're looking at Safari series, 20 megahertz to 18 gigahertz. You're looking at UAV jammers, 1 to 18 gigahertz. So all you need to do is place the jammers in the right places. They track the incoming signals from the satellites, and jammers can do that. Again, this is no rocket science. This is very, very basic stuff. Basic enough for someone like me who doesn't really take that much interest in defense, but still can talk to you about it, right? There are jammers. There is public information. These jammers can track satellites, moving satellites, which are moving at 27,000 kilometers per hour. And then they can jam the signals coming to your user terminals. The government doesn't need to shut off your user terminal or the ground station or the satellite. All it needs to do is just jam the signal, and it can. It can do it in a small area. It can do it in a protest site. सिंघू पे जब प्रोटेस्ट हुए थे आज से 5 साल पहले 4 साल पहले, there were jammers in place. Now, no one got on the top of a tower, pulled the plug. That's not how jamming works, right? So signal jamming is pretty much possible. This was the next question a lot of people had, that how will
not only that was a question, signal jamming, what about data security?
Again,
because
satellite.
the American government requires every single technology company, whether big tech or not, to share data as a law with them. It's a requirement. It's not. It's a feature, not a bug.
See, again, Starlink is not storing your data. Starlink is not a data center. It's, think of it as plumbing in your house. It doesn't store water. Your water is stored in the overhead tank above. Your tap is the user terminal. Starlink is that plumbing. The overhead tank is still the data centers from where Starlink has to get your data. That is where ground stations come into play. So there are three components. People have confused it just for a two component thing, a, a satellite and a user terminal. No, there is a ground station in there. That is why ground stations need to be there. The challenge right now for Elon Musk is that there are too many ground stations. For instance, in India, with a landmass of 3.5 million square kilometer, 3,200 kilometers north and south, 3,000 kilometers west to east, from Gujarat to Arunachal, there is absolutely no way that you cannot have a ground station, because the relaying back, there needs to be a satellite which has a ground station at its line of sight. That's the stage one technology of how communication in Starlink works. Stage two is when Elon Musk imagines that satellites will start communicating within them through lasers, which is why the E band comes into play. It's all right now within the news. There are satellites with lasers already up there within the Starlink mesh. But Elon Musk's futuristic idea, and that is where a lot of people had a lot of problem, is that satellites should be able to communicate. So, for instance, you are in Delhi, you send a message to, let's say, your satellite signal. Play this video. That satellite now communicates with 10 other satellites, whichever in the air through lasers, infrared technology, all of those fancy stuff. They then relay back data after they get it from the ground station, and then they show it back to you. So ground station will still exist, but because now the satellites are communicating within themselves, the need for the number of ground station decreases, but they're still going to be there. Right? So please, I mean, these things need to be cleared out.
All right. So you can jam in certain areas, not give access to Starlink, uh, data
So
transfer.
just to finish that question, sorry, I couldn't answer. So we were on the tap and the plumbing part. Starlink doesn't store data. All it stores is your IP address, the basic things like that, but it's all encrypted. Starlink has absolutely no interest in your data. It has a specific interest in ensuring that the data comes to you.
Now, I have a third question to this.
Hmm.
Even if it has details of your IP or stuff like that, is there a way in the technology that all these storage facilities or information stay within servers in India, does not go outside India? Why can't Starlink do that? If they want to do business, the least they can do is, why should my IP be known to an American government?
No, it will be known to American government because of the feature you told about, but because of the gateway that we spoke about, the GMPS thing, the licensing thing, the Data Protection Act of 2023, all these things make it mandatory that it has to be stored in India as well. Every single data. That is where the American companies are
So
pushing
our
India.
IP details will remain in India now, because
They
post
will also
data
remain in. They
protection.
will also remain in India. Right now, when you browse on Google, you're using YouTube to watch this podcast. Your IP details are being shared. I mean,
I
I
know.
understand the question, but this thing about our IP address being insecure, unsafe, and all that, it's already going to every American
No,
company
no, an
government.
ethical hacker can find out my location through my IP address in a very easy way, is
Yeah.
a separate issue. But let's say this is from a purely national security perspective. Let's say somebody is using Starlink and they don't want to do it. Should Starlink have the wherewithal to do that? So, do these things matter? Listen, I'm just asking questions. I just read everything that was written below this. So I'm asking you literally whatever was written below it. Whether I agree or disagree with does not matter. My job is to ask all these questions.
No, no, no. Actually, we should be discussing them with an open mind. First things, it can be jammed. Yes. Number two, it's being sold via Reliance and Airtel. Starlink has not been given a direct market access in India, as the news reports are. It
Yeah.
has to comply with the regulatory authorities. Moreover, the selling will happen through Reliance and Airtel. So, from a
If
secure,
Starlink shares information with the Americans, Reliance and Airtel will be going to jail. That's what I'm understanding.
why would they go to jail?
Because they break the law, right? They are doing the dirty work over here.
No, 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 I don't think that's really how it works.
Or
Look,
paying a
right
fine.
now,
Or paying a fine.
no, see, again, the problem with our data localization law, and this is our problem to fix, is our data should be stored in India. Fair enough. There is no law that does not create a necessary clause that they cannot be copies of data. That is where the lobbying from the American companies with the Indian government, that is where it has been a deadlock for a long time. Your data is stored in India. Fine, good enough. Where is the clause that a copy of it cannot be stored in America?
Can.
Do you want your data to be stored in India? Fine, we are happy to store it. Do you want no copies of it to be stored elsewhere? Oops. Where is the right to forget? It's all on paper, but which company today offers you the right to forget? Right to forget is when you tell a company, I'm done with you. Thank you for your service. It was good doing business with you. Now I'm putting on delete, which is the guarantee that you will forget me, that there is no data of mine that you'll have with you. Do we have that yet? No.
Now, the next fear was that if we let these companies in, these companies penetrate the market so much that they dominate the market. And then tomorrow, if we have a warlike situation with America, they just switch the lights off.
Let them. Let them. Anyway, you have an exhaustive internet infrastructure for 4G, 5G, broadband. You have it,
Which is all domestically sourced.
which is all domestically sourced.
Which
Look,
is why I have no problem with them coming now, because क्या उखाड़ लेंगे हमारे पास तो वैसा ही है.
look, your Geos and your Airtels on your Vodafones, wires, they are still going to be there. But Starlink is in a different, operating independently, doesn't need their ground infrastructure. It's not hacking into their infrastructure, doesn't need any of it. Please understand. So let's say Starlink tomorrow says, okay, we are at war with India, we are going to switch off our services. हाँ कर ले भाई, ठीक है, हमारे पास अपना इंटरनेट है. Your problem is if you are at war with US, the first thing they'll do is the fiber cables, the ones that are in the ocean, they'll be cut off. कोई तुम्हारा हवा से इंटरनेट नहीं काटेगा, जिसको काटना होगा वो तुम्हारी केबल्स काटेगा. एंड दिस हैज हैपेंड माइंड यू इन रशिया.
अभी इंटरनेट पे लोग बोलेंगे क्यों मोदी ने केबल्स नहीं डाली हैं.
Internet doesn't work like that. I mean, sorry to disappoint you all. Internet doesn't work like that.
ऐसा
Internet
नहीं होता
doesn't.
है. मोदी
हाँ,
को पूरी
internet.
दुनिया में सांप के जैसे हर जगह केबल घुमाने की, जैसे हमारे यहाँ ऐसे रास्ते टू रास्ते हवा में केबल घूमती है, मोदी उधर घुमाएगा.
Yeah. No, again, और भी मतलब I'm asking. There were scenarios people had sent that what happens user terminal अगर पाकिस्तान से स्मगल करा है, kill switch क्या है, all of it the government has control. तो मतलब क्या लग रहा है, सरकार मतलब अलीबाग से आके बैठी है. They
गवर्नमेंट ने
literally
तो
allow a company to give internet services
by
in
with
India
due
without
respect to
having.
the babudom of this country, they thought they can block VPNs. ऐसे तो येड़े लोग हमारे गवर्नमेंट में भी बैठे होते हैं. ऐसे
ऐसे
मतलब
ऐसे
जा,
नहीं होता.
जा इतनी रिस्पेक्ट मैं नहीं कर सकता गवर्नमेंट की.
No, but if there is a security situation, Starlink is not invincible. Even if tomorrow there is no ground station in India, let's assume 2040, your laptop size user terminal is the size of your phone. There is a direct cell to satellite to cell technology. It's still a user terminal, right? It still needs signal. सरकार को ना तुम्हारे यूजर टर्मिनल में इंटरेस्ट है, ना ग्राउंड स्टेशन में इंटरेस्ट है, ना सैटेलाइट में इंटरेस्ट है. उसको इंटरेस्ट क्या है, सिग्नल में. Waves, electromagnetic waves that you can't see, that are operating at a certain frequency. That is what they screw. कश्मीर में जब 370 हटाया गया था, वहां पर गवर्नर टावर नहीं गिरा रहे थे रिलायंस और एयरटेल के. That's not how it works. And yeah, let's do the
No,
bad scenarios first. Worst case scenarios,
no,
security
no. Worst case
scenarios.
scenario. Listen, I mean, at the end of the day, so again, someone might go ahead and say, so that means we are basically submitting ourselves to American suzerainty. So what about our boundaries and our sovereignty with the idea? So that means we're just accepting that we're fine with the Americans governing these things. And to that, my answer is, it was till when does India keep its market closed? That's my question. Like how long?
How
Like I
different?
always use the car analogy. Like साला 30 साल हमने हमारी मार्केट बंद रखी, ऐसी फुदू छाप गाड़ियां आज भी बनती है इंडिया में. क्या बोल लेगा यार.
नहीं, मैं तो कह रहा हूं तुम्हें डर है स्टारलिंक पे, बात करो. Let's talk science. Let's talk how jamming might work. How did you decide this is about surrendering India's digital sovereignty?
अच्छा, वो सब छोड़ दे, मेरे को एक बात बताओ. ये एंड्रॉयड फोन जो हर आदमी भारत में यूज कर रहा है, ये वाले इंक्लूडिंग मैं, ये सिक्योर है?
नहीं,
पूरा
नहीं.
भारत एंड्रॉयड पे है, वो सिक्योर है? अब बोल दो क्यों भारत अपने फोन नहीं बनाता. भाई अभी तो बन रहे हैं ना तुम्हारे ये फोन, इंडिया में बन रहे हैं ना, सिक्योर है? मेरे को गारंटी दे सकते हो अंकल सैम इसको नहीं एक्सेस करता?
Let's be very clear. Until your entire hardware and software is not domestically designed, prototyped, manufactured, and sold, you can't do digital Atmanirbharta. And that's a long ask. Even US is relying on other countries. Even, they are relying on Taiwan, for instance, for their chips, the chips that get into an iPhone. China, for all the technology supremacy it enjoys, it's relying on a global supply chain. India will have to rely on a global supply chain, be it a software or the hardware component. Now, when people say that we are giving US a free pass into India, my question is how? How is it any different or more dangerous from what websites you use? तुम ट्विटर पे बैठ के बकचोदी कर रहे हो यार. तुम जीमेल का ईमेल चलाते हो. फेसबुक पे तुम्हारी पूरी
ये
जन्म
यूट्यूब
पत्री
में
है.
चल रहा है, और लोग यूट्यूब में आके बेस्ट. मेरे को सबसे कॉमेडी क्या आया था मालूम है? मैंने कनाडा में, जब ये आजकल ट्रम्प और इसका झगड़ा चल रहा है ना, कनाडा में किसी ने फेसबुक और ट्विटर पे लिखा बॉयकॉट अमेरिकन प्रोडक्ट्स, तो उसके नीचे किसी ने जवाब दिया, अबे ये दोनों भी तो अमेरिकन है, अपना ट्विटर और फेसबुक अकाउंट तो बंद कर. नहीं, ये नहीं करूंगा. अमेरिकन को यहीं पे आके उन्हीं के प्लेटफॉर्म पे घर पे जाके गाली देगा उनको.
नहीं, आप ये देखो, आपका आप साइंस पे बात करो ना. आपको डर है, आप करो. आप सॉवरेनिटी सरेंडर कैसे हुई, मुझे ये बताओ.
मुझे नहीं मालूम.
तो तुम्हें लग रहा है अभी भी सैटेलाइट घूम नहीं रहे हैं स्टारलिंक के इंडिया के ऊपर? इट्स अ ग्लोबल मैश. इट्स जस्ट नॉट वर्किंग इन इंडिया, दैट्स ऑल. बिकॉज देयर आर नो यूजर टर्मिनल्स टू बीम इट. ऐसा नहीं है कि कल को इलॉन मस्क को परमिशन मिल जाएगी तो इंडिया पे नए सैटेलाइट लगाएगा. बल्ब नहीं लगा रहे घर के.
अच्छा, ये छोड़ो ना, तो फिर गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया F-35 खरीदनी चाहिए कि नहीं खरीदनी चाहिए, मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है. पहले गवर्नमेंट ट्राई कर रही थी तो अमेरिकन दे नहीं रहे थे, अब अमेरिकन देना चाहते हैं, तो अभी एक शुरू हो गया, F-35 का ले रहे हो तुम लोग, F-35 का ले रहे हो. ट्राई करके देख लिया ना? एयर चीफ के कमेंट सुन लिए ना, जो उन्होंने वो
नो,
फाइटर जेट से बाहर निकल के बोला था. दैट वाज हिज नाइसेस्ट वे ऑफ सेइंग, भाई तुमसे कुछ नहीं होने वाला.
No, I'll give you a game theory. Okay, Kushal and I did this. अभी जो स्टारलिंक पे स्टार्टिंग में सैटेलाइट्स यूज हुए थे, दे वो V1s. ठीक है, अराउंड 300 किलोग्राम. Now they're going for V2, the ones that with the laser technology, ISLs, which can communicate with each other. They will be 800 kilograms, or rather 1200 kilograms. Pardon me. V1 was 300, V2 is 1200. You're talking about a 1200 kilogram satellite. You need to design it. You need to prototype it. At least 3 years. Let's say we start in 2025. I'm not even talking about the money right now. मैं कह रहा हूँ बंद कर दो हाईवे, एयरपोर्ट सब बनाना, सब इस पे लग जाओ. There is a launch vehicle that you need to figure out, and next gen launch vehicle which has 20-30 tons capacity, that was going to be operational at least in the best case scenario by 2035. कितने लॉन्च कर लेगा वो साल में? 1200 किलो का सैटेलाइट है, 20 टन उसकी कैपेसिटी है, कितने सैटेलाइट ले जाएगा? ठीक है, आपके ऊपर वहां 42,000 सैटेलाइट लगने वाले हैं. दिस इज नॉट अबाउट अंडरमाइनिंग इंडिया और बीइंग what was the word I read? Tesla tard. That man has brains. He's delivered. He got the 2 astronauts back home this morning.
नो सो फिर टेस्ला की गाड़ियां भी लानी नहीं है क्या इंडिया में?
हाँ, people want
नहीं
some
तो क्या
sort of.
करना? मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है, मैं बोलता हूँ ठीक है, बंद कर दो अपने आप को, हर चीज के लिए बंद कर दो, खुद बना के दे दो. खुद बनाना नहीं है और जो बना रहा है उसको लाना नहीं है, तो करे क्या? एंड वेयर इज द कट ऑफ? वेयर इज द कट ऑफ पॉइंट कि अगर आपने यहां तक नहीं बनाया तो बाद में दूसरों को ले लेंगे?
भाई मुझे ये बताओ, what is the best case scenario in which we have an ISRO linked Starlink in India, ISRO backed Starlink kind of a thing in India? Best case scenario is 15 years. A realistic scenario is 15 to 20 years and a pessimistic scenario is 20 to 25 years. So going by the sarkari speed and the political instability that is a problem, take it 40 years. अच्छा, लोग और समझदार.
मैं तो स्टारलिंक यूज भी नहीं करूंगा, इतना वाहियात महंगा
मैं
इंटरनेट
भी
में
नहीं
यूएस
करूंगा.
ने कनाडा में नहीं करने वाला, तो मैं यहाँ क्या घंटा करने वाला हूँ? पॉइंट
भाई
ये है कि
मैं
मुझे
भी.
इतना विश्वास है ना, ये लोग देख भाई, मेरा ये अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, जब ये लोग बोल रहे थे ना अमेरिकन कार्स और अमेरिकन मोटरसाइकिल्स को इंडिया में आने देना नहीं चाहिए, मैंने बोला बिल्कुल आने देना चाहिए, बिकॉज इतनी वाहियात गाड़ियां और इतने वाहियात मोटरसाइकिल हैं, क्योंकि मैं चला चुका हूं उनको, मोटरसाइकिल तो नहीं, गाड़ियां चला चुका हूं अमेरिकन. इतनी वाहियात गाड़ियां हैं, मुझे पूरा विश्वास है वो यहाँ पे आएंगी, दे आर गोइंग टू फेल. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, इतनी घटिया गाड़ियां हैं. सेकेंड थिंग इज, आई वाज लुकिंग एट द कॉस्टिंग ऑफ दिस एंटायर स्टारलिंक थिंग. It is going to be so expensive. I don't know who are these people who are going to consume it. India is such a cost sensitive society. I want this guy to come and fail.
Apple also did not find its audience in a year. Apple ने क्या 2008-9 से इंडिया में है, आज जाके डबल हुआ उसका मार्केट शेयर 15-17 साल बाद. Again, Kushal, what my point is, people undermine the kind of innovation that has gone into Starlink. We have to appreciate science where it really
See,
matters.
If Indian patriots are so worried about these things, then are Indian patriots willing to use the same logic in every single technology? Why
Yeah,
not on cell phones? Why not on
yeah.
computers? Why not on everything else? Why not? Why? Like, why does it only apply to this, not the other? There has to be a rationale, right? Or we pick and choose. Why? Because this is the outrage right now.
No, इनकी भी गलती नहीं है. The problem is Elon Musk has made satellite launches so simple. सबको लगता है Musk woke up one day and decided he wants to be Tony Stark and he put up. People don't realize this was in work for at least a decade. You know what he's working on right now, and it's not really. It's अभी वो test कर रहा है Starship. Right now he has a Falcon 9 which has a capacity of about 22,000 kilograms. Starship has a capacity, at least a reported capacity of 150,000 kilogram payload capacity. And it's Starship के 2-3 टेस्ट फेल हुए हैं, अभी भी वो ट्राई कर रहा है. भाई आपको ये समझना पड़ेगा, आपका इसरो साल में 5-7-10 लॉन्चेस कर लेता है, वो हफ्ते में एक करता है, और वो हफ्ते में एक लॉन्च में 100 सैटेलाइट्स ऊपर भेजता है. एंड हिज रॉकेट कम्स बैक, इट्स अ रीयूजेबल व्हीकल which he uses again the next week. Now, this is mind-boggling technology. You have to understand this is some serious innovation which requires private money, which is there. It's coming from Tesla, it's coming from SpaceX, wherever it's coming. But to say इसरो तो ये 2 साल में कर लेगा, भैया ऐसे नहीं होता. साइंस ऐसे काम नहीं करती. तुमने आज उसको कर भी लिया, मैं कह रहा हूं मोदी जी 20 का $40 बिलियन दे दें इसरो को साइन करके, भाई भूल जाता हूं मैं केपेक्स, तो ले पैसा. ठीक है, आपको सैटेलाइट बनाने में तो समय लगेगा ना. उसको
And
टेस्ट तो करोगे ना.
why would the Indian government not switch the lights off the moment it becomes a national security threat? If the Indian government could do it to TikTok or anything it wants to, why not to this company? Can you give me one rational reason as to why the Indian state is so weak that it can't say no to a company? The Indian state has a history of saying no to multiple companies in its entire history, starting from Coca-Cola in the 70s. People do realize, right?
And please understand, geostationary satellites cannot do what Starlink does. They are pretty high up. They are only finite slots. अब ये CPIM का statement आया था and people are like, oh, they have raised some very valid issues. उन्होंने क्या लिखा था? स्पेक्ट्रम कैसे ऑक्शन कर रहे हो भैया? ग्लोबली, इंक्लूडिंग द कंट्री where SpaceX comes from, the United States, these spectrums are given from an administrative point of view. Administratively दिए जाते हैं ये. इनकी ऑक्शनिंग नहीं होती, कंपेटिटिव बिडिंग नहीं होती सैटेलाइट स्पेक्ट्रम्स के लिए. पहली चीज. दूसरी चीज, सीपीआईएम के स्टेटमेंट में था, वी आर गिविंग अवे वाइटल ऑर्बिट स्लॉट्स. आई मीन टू स्पीक लाइक यू, ओ खोतिया, ऑर्बिटल स्लॉट्स काला लॉजिक जियो स्टेशनरी ऑर्बिट्स के लिए है. लो अर्थ ऑर्बिट में देयर आर प्लेंटी ऑफ ऑर्बिटल प्लेन्स. स्टारलिंक के पास अभी 72 ऑर्बिटल प्लेन्स हैं. Think of orbital planes as a line around the equator. Think of it as a, वो लूप बच्चे करते हैं ना, जो हुला लूप कहते हैं ना उसको. Think of it as a hula loop around the equator of the earth, right? This is the hula loop, for instance. A 53-degree tilt पे इसके satellites चलते हैं. Now, a circle is 360 degrees. All these orbital planes are separated by 5 degrees. So 360 divided by 5, 72 orbital planes. That is what Elon Musk is working on, but he is on a precise height of 550 kilometers. Low Earth orbit is from 200 to 2000 kilometers. So there is no problem of orbital slots also. There are enough.
What I find very interesting is that people don't find the idea of actually cell phones not being made in India. No, they are not made in India. They are assembled in India. None of these things are made in India. And a cell phone has far more potential of being a so-called threat than anything this guy Elon Musk can do. We can literally switch the lights off on Elon Musk whenever we want to. Why are we... I have not understand why the like, see, Harsh came and he shared his views. I don't agree with Harsh. He made his point. I did not cut him up because I don't cut people off. I don't agree entirely with you also, but what I don't understand is this perceived threat. And as far as technology transfer is concerned, no, there is not going to be technology. Now, what I expect from the Indians to do is let Starlink come to India. Hopefully, we get some technology. We steal technology. मैं तो openly बोल रहा हूँ, do what the Chinese do. चोरी करो सालों को, उनको काम करो तो इनको चोरी कर दो, सस्ता तो खत्म हो गई बात. मुझे तो कोई शर्म भी नहीं आती है बोलने में.
वो जो टेक्नोलॉजी ऐसे इसके यूजर टर्मिनल्स हैं, they have these very complex antennas. So one antenna in a user terminal is made up of actually 1200 smaller antennas, which have this capacity of sort of tuning their signal to the movement of the satellite. पर वो एयरटेल कर सकते हैं, ऑलरेडी OneWeb में वो टेक्नोलॉजी है. इनकी टेक्नोलॉजी जो इंडिया आ रही है वो कोई नायाब टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं है. ऐसा नहीं है कि हमने नहीं कुछ किया. प्रॉब्लम यहाँ स्केल का है. स्केल भी तो एक चीज है ना. वो अगर हर हफ्ते 100 सैटेलाइट्स ऊपर भेज सकता है, he has the scale, he's cracked the scale. People are undermining.
Then why can't India? I mean, I don't think Reliance is incapable of scale now. They have enough money.
It's the money.
I honestly think, you know why Reliance is doing a joint venture? See, the one thing I know is this is the same company, Reliance, when it came to building a 5G network, did not allow a single Purza from China. FYI. Right?
Huawei.
This is the same company, Reliance, and they're working with an American company. The simple reason being, I think Reliance is not sure ye itna chalne wala hai. And the government has literally told them, तुम लोग इसके बीच में बैठोगे, इसको मैं डायरेक्ट आने नहीं देने वाला हूँ. From what I have understood, the government wants Indian companies to be the go-between, and the deal with them will be, तुम ज्यादा होशियारी मारोगे, we will pull the plug off. Literally, The one thing I know is when it comes to national security, yes, there might be problems in India, but when it comes to national security, India is very hawkish. ज्यादा हुशाई मारेगा तो भाई हम भी उसकी बत्ती बुझा देंगे. लगा रहे तू, तेरी
भाई
सैटेलाइट को अपने पिछवाड़े में डाल दियो.
पंजाब में कभी भी डिस्टरबेंस हुआ है जब पाकिस्तान साइड से, जब वहां के गांव खाली करवाने पड़ते, जैसे पुलवामा अटैक के बाद हुआ था कि पंजाब के बॉर्डर के गांव, बिकॉज पंजाब इज ओपन फील्ड्स, इट्स जस्ट अ फेंस्ड बॉर्डर, you can immediately jam signals there. What do you think happens? My
अरे
question to the
कश्मीर में
people:
किया था यार, कश्मीर में इतने दिन तक जैम थे यार, मतलब लोग
longest
क्या
internet
बातें करते हैं
blackout ever, I
फिर.
think, anywhere in the world. So please understand, Starlink is not invincible. Its technology is not unique. Where Elon
जियो
Musk stands out is scalability.
जियो एंड एयरटेल इज टू मेंटेन इंडियन कंट्रोल. तुम उसकी
Hmm.
गोटी नहीं दबा सकते, इनकी तो दबा सकते हो ना. खत्म हो गई बात. तो क्या प्रॉब्लम है? मैं वही तो कह रहा हूं, खत्म हो गई बात. मैकडोनल्ड्स आके तुमको बर्गर खिला खिला के मोटा कर रहा है मुस्टंडो, वो बंद कर दो ना.
No, and each user terminal that is going to be sold has a unique identification, a number, think of it as. Airtel and Jio will always have those numbers mapped to a customer. Always. This is
यार
not a free run technology as many are assuming it to be. It's far more bureaucratic. It's easier to get a broadband connection than to get a Starlink connection from the looks of it.
देखो भाई, जो लोग इतना इतना कंसर्न दिखा रहे हैं ना उनकी सिक्योरिटी और उसके ऊपर, सबसे पहले तो एंड्रॉइड यूज करना बंद करो यार. इतना तुमको शौक है अगर तुम्हारी सिक्योरिटी का, इतने अगर तुम पर्टिकुलर हो, तो भाई कम से कम ये तो बंद कर दो एंड्रॉइड यूज करना.
Uh,
नहीं,
disappointing, embarrassing.
be consistent in your opposition. See, my point is simple. Am I going to use Starlink? No, because I think it's a shitty product. I've used it, by the way. I've used it. I don't go hiking. I don't go to, mountainous trips like many people do in America. It's just like you take the damn thing out and you use it. I know who uses it. But if you are using a regular internet connection, you don't need it, is my point of view.
Yeah, everyone has this question: will it succeed in Indian market? No, and no
No,
telecom
it's going
company
to
in India.
fail. It's going to fail. I'm so
It's going
sure.
to, yeah, it's going to. But it's a good technology. I think if you have to take it to a Himalayan state, somewhere where internet is not there, say Arunachal, it will work.
I like मुझे बहुत हंसी आती है जब लोग सिक्योरिटी की बात करते हैं इंडिया में. लाइक आई विल नॉट से एनीथिंग, जस्ट लेट्स जस्ट से. मैं बोलूंगा नहीं, मैं ज्यादा बोलूंगा तो लोगों को फिर चुभती है. ठीक है.
No, I'm looking for answers. I'm genuinely looking कि scenarios दो. Let's game it out. कि कहाँ पर problem हो सकती है. How is it surrendering digital sovereignty? I still don't get it. How? Like, are you thinking it will bypass Indian internet service providers? No, the cost doesn't add up. You think the technology is too big? No, the technology exists within India also. The scalability is the problem. You think they'll store data? No, they are not interested in storing data. They are a way of facilitating the communication of signals. They are not here to store data. डाउट तो बताओ. सबने डूम्सडे 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 कर दिया यार. तुम कह रहे हो बॉर्डर एरियाज में दिक्कत है. देयर इज अ जीएमपीएस, there is a license, there is a gateway that needs to be there. That's regulation. There is a border buffer zone.
सी
Starlink
बट
cannot work in borders.
एक पॉइंट हर्ष ने बोला था ना, वो बहुत वैलिड था कि जस्ट बिकॉज यू आर इनकेपेबल ऑफ डूइंग समथिंग, इट डजंट मीन यू शुड नेवर ट्राई समथिंग. एंड अदरवाइज वी जस्ट हैव टू एक्सेप्ट द आइडिया ऑफ अमेरिकन supremacy.
But we are trying. We are trying.
No,
Airtel has a
but
viability.
that is a legitimate thing that Harsh raised, and he also said that sometimes you need to give your market some breathing space so that अभी अभी अगर गाड़ियां उनकी आई ना, मुझे कोई स्ट्रेस नहीं है क्योंकि हमारी गाड़ियों का मार्केट pretty much सेट है. मैं ऑनेस्टली बोलूं, why I don't understand the fear as far as Starlink is concerned, मेरा आंसर टू हर्ष would have been कि भाई हम इतने कॉस्ट सेंसिटिव देश है ना कि ये लोगों ने स्टारलिंक यूज नहीं किया, उसके प्राइसेस चेक करो अमेरिका और कनाडा में, फट के फ्लावर हो जाएगी तुम्हारी,
It's
इतना महंगा
expensive.
है.
It's expensive than broadband, at least in India. At least in the best case scenario, it will cost you 20,000-30,000 rupees per month. So,
बेस्ट ऑफ लगा इंटरनेट 30,000 रुपए का देना. मैं
कल
इस
मैंने
समय
ट्वीट
इंटरनेट
भी
का
डाला
कितना
था
दे रहा हूँ
कि
मैं, मेरा वन
हाँ
गीगाबाइट अपलोड डाउनलोड स्पीड है, मैं 3,500 रुपए महीने का देता हूँ इंटरनेट का, 1 गीगा अपलोड डाउनलोड का.
I don't
तीस
know.
हजार जिसको देना दे दो. दे दो. ये मालूम है, मैं जब पीक MTNL होता था ना, जब वो टट्टी इंटरनेट MTNL का, तभी मैं 8-9 हजार महीने का देता था. हाँ
हम्म,
यार क्या
तो ये
I don't
कहानी है.
understand. Like,
This science to it is endless. It's not very hi-fi science. It's pretty basic science, how frequencies and how electromagnetic waves really work. That's just class 12th physics, nothing really fancy. But again, final point. सरकार का पूरा कंट्रोल है इस पे भी, अभी भी ऐसा नहीं है कि नहीं है. एक सीपीआईएम के स्टेटमेंट में था, oh, they'll map our weather and crop patterns. Yeah, they'll map your crop patterns in Punjab, and they'll hold their heads in dismay.
so किसी ने लिखा सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजेस विल यूज स्टारलिंक टू वॉच इंडियाज गॉट लेट एंड डिलीटेड एपिसोड्स.
So if there are websites that are also blocked in India, which the government has ordered the ISPs to block, like pornography and torrents. Now, if you are living under a rock, you probably think that pornography and torrents cannot be accessed in India.
हाँ एक्सेस भी होते हैं.
Right? I'll let you live with that assumption. But
और
the
बैन के
gateway,
बाद इतने लोग देखते हैं.
but the gateway exists for that reason, that if there are some websites that are blocked, they remain blocked on the Starlink network as well. For those who don't know, genuinely, Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, all these platforms actually get a lot of reports from the government. They make it public at the end of every quarter, or after every 6 months or a complete year, that these are the requests we have received from several governments across the world. These were linked with the closing of accounts. These were linked with censoring of accounts. These were linked with closing of deleting of some posts. Governments routinely communicate with big tech companies, broadcasting companies. It's not unusual stuff, just that you are living under a rock.
प्रॉब्लम क्या मालूम है, आई थिंक हम लोगों ने है ना एक इमेजिनरी फियर क्रिएट कर लिया है इसमें. और
अरे उस पे लाइक्स और रीट्वीट्स आते हैं ना.
नहीं नहीं नहीं, वो नहीं है यार. आई थिंक व्हाट हैपेंस इज, आई थिंक इट्स गॉट टू डू विद द lack of understanding of the technology and the market available, right? Okay, if you want it, this has to be a case by case base, which is why I understand when someone like Harsh made the case for why it was sensible to block the car industry for that 30-year period and build our core base. Now let these people come in and we'll compete with them. I think that made sense. I actually
Yeah.
agree with Harsh there. I just don't agree with that same logic being applied to Starlink, because I have so much faith in the uselessness of the product itself. I am very confident about the absolute stinginess of the Indian consumer, जो 5 पैसे से भी ज्यादा खर्चा नहीं करेगा अगर उसको जरूरत नहीं है तो.
No, actually the problem is, Kushal, the future is satellite internet. अभी जो ये टावर्स वगैरह हम देख रहे हैं, not until the next 30 years at least, in India 50, they won't get redundant. Okay? But the future is, you have enough mesh of satellites up in the air. Chinese are building their own mesh with 38,000. Amazon is building something called Kepler. That you have a satellite enabled smartphone that can communicate directly with the satellite. That is the future. Direct to cell, satellite to cell kind of a technology. But even in that case, the jamming will work as it works. Physics तो नहीं बदलेगी ना भाई.
Why do we assume that we will allow Elon to come in India, eventually study his entire model, and then some khopdi sitting in some Indian office be like, I could do this cheaper. चल अभी अपन करते हैं. अभी see, हम लोगों की लाइफ का उसूल क्या होता है में, इंडियंस ऑलवेज बिलीव इन लेटिंग समवन एल्स टेक द रिस्क फर्स्ट. उसको रिस्क, तू गाड़ी चला ये रोड पे, एक बार चला के दिखा ना मेरे को, मरा नहीं, अच्छा अभी साइड हो जा, अब मैं मेरी गाड़ी लेके जाएगा, मैं तेरे को लिख दे रहा हूं. Eventually, you will see Indian satellites in space covering Indian thing, but we will never start. In our lifetime it will happen. We will never start it because we are a risk averse society. कौन पैसा डालेगा? पहले गोरे को डालने दे पैसा. Now I will do it. Indians ऐसे ही है, देश ही ऐसा है हमारा.
No, but my thing is, how can people think that CPIM will make sense on this? CPIM is literally saying in its manifesto that India should give up its nuclear
Yes.
arsenals.
The party that has Mao and Stalin in their office will make sense on this. Thank you.
So, again, another day of me making the case, ban art degrees in India, let everyone compulsorily study
There is
science and
one thing where
management.
you and I agree with CPIM completely. Their
Yeah.
hatred of Khalistan.
Yeah.
That is the one thing we agree with the CPIM on.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Nothing else. Arey bhai, I have so much faith. तेरे को मैं, this is the quintessential example I always give for how cost sensitive and haramkhor Indians are. Peter England, somebody thought is an English brand क्योंकि उसके नाम में पीटर इंग्लैंड था. किसी को नहीं मालूम था कि पीटर इंग्लैंड एक इंडियन ब्रांड है. तो जब पीटर इंग्लैंड इंडिया में लॉन्च होता है,
फॉरेन ब्रांड है.
हाँ ठीक
और
है,
इंडियन टेरेन फॉरेन ब्रांड है.
हाँ इंडियन टेरेन फॉरेन ब्रांड है, मगर पीटर इंग्लैंड इंडियन ब्रांड है. तो जब पीटर इंग्लैंड कम्स टू इंडिया, राइट, that was the most hilarious thing because in 3 weeks or 4 weeks of Peter England becoming a thing, right, or maximum 4 months, I was once walking. These are my days where I could normally just walk around Chembur station without being recognized, which was the good days. But I was walking and I saw that रेडी वाला जो कपड़ा बेचता है ना, रास्ते पे कपड़े बेचने वाला, उधर पीटर इंडिया मैंने देखा. मेरे को इतनी हंसी आई, मैंने बोला अबे पीटर इंग्लैंड भी तो इंडियन है. मगर वो लोग इतने वियर्ड है, उन्होंने बोला पीटर इंडिया बनाएगा, मैं इसका डिजाइन कॉपी मारेगा, 4 कलर इधर 4 कलर उधर, एक चेक्स इधर एक चेक्स उधर, पीटर इंडिया. दिस इज इंडिया. ये इसको आने दे, मैं बोल रहा हूं. तू आ रे, तू आ तो सही, देख हम तेरी कैसी कलाई करते हैं. सैटेलाइट में भी तेरी कलाई होगी. बस I believe in Indians copying the technology. And if somebody from Tech America is watching this, that I am encouraging Indians to copy the technology, yes I am.
It's not even a copied technology. मतलब अपने पास है, स्केल नहीं कर पा रहे.
स्केल थोड़ा उसको रिस्क लेने देना, हम काय को रिस्क लें.
हाँ,
बाद में हम हमारा कर लेंगे ना, उसको ही खरीद लेंगे हम.
एक अलग ओवर कॉन्फिडेंस पता है क्या है? वो आदमी बैठा कहता है वेले टाइम में, I want to build the first human colony on Mars in my lifetime, and the man is already 40-45, right?
हाँ.
So, but
नहीं 50 साल के ऊपर होगा. इलॉन मस्क इतना बुड्ढा है साला.
But some Enthu Cutlet in some part of India thinks, नहीं इसको तो मेरे बैंक डिटेल्स में इंटरेस्ट होगा, ये तभी स्टारलिंक इंडिया में ला रहा है.
भाई मेरे बैंक डिटेल्स में अगर वो इंटरेस्ट लेगा, उसको 1-1 रुपए की डोनेशन दिखेगी. बस
Please
ऐसे ही है.
be a little realistic about what you are sort of attacking. And again, I tell people, give us scenarios where you think it's a problem. You spoke about borders, you spoke about jamming, kill switch, jamming a limited area with Starlink. There will never be a national digital lockdown. अभी तक आज तक तो नहीं हुआ by the government, आगे भी नहीं होगा, when one can assume. Because if we have a national digital lockdown, I'm sure we are not worrying about Starlink, then we are worrying about far other number of things on the surface. So give us scenarios. You're talking about data storage, again doesn't apply. You're talking about data localization, again doesn't apply. You're talking about Indian government monitoring the traffic. There is a GMPS license, there is a gateway, there are enough regulations to screw him. Then where is the problem? I mean, I'm asking for it in all humility.
See, the key to anything to work in the Indian market is a decent quality product. I would not say a top quality product. It has to be priced right.
Hmm.
Indians want a deal even when they are rich. Rich Indians also actively look for a deal. The frugal Indian mindset is just a thing. It's just a thing that we have in India. So to say that this is not going to happen in the case of Starlink and all these products is just ridiculous.
Hmm.
People are like, Harley Davidson, let Harley come, man. Bullet had its run. Now let Bullet compete with Harley. Remove the bloody thing, yaar. Let Harley come now to India. Let Bullet have a run for its money. Let's see.
Can I
कितना
say
साल
something
प्रोटेक्ट
very
करोगे?
sensitive? 90s the mobile came to India. It's been 35 years. तुम मुझे बता दो 35 साल में एक इंडियन मार्केट में कौन सी मोबाइल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनी खड़ी हुई
नहीं हुई.
which could compete with the Chinese on pricing, which could compete with the Americans on technology, hardware, and software? None. I'm sorry, none. Is it the mindset? I don't know. Is it the culture? I don't want to comment. But you had 35 years, you had a population of 1.4 billion people, 850 million people on the internet. You till date have not created the ideal hardware or the software that you can say is the first preference of Indians. You haven't.
Hmm. सारे फोन तो चाइनीज है भाई, या अमेरिकन है या चाइनीज है.
हाँ अमेरिकन वो लावा और कार्बन और माइक्रोमैक्स हुए थे but they were also just assembling phones in India. But even when it came to them competing with say a Vivo and an Oppo, they vanished. They vanished in a couple of years. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, you give me the hardware. And again, this brings us back to a very original discussion. India needs to be a hardware nation now. भूल जाओ कंप्यूटर पे क्या होता है, बैठ के कंप्यूटर के आगे। एक तो प्रॉब्लम है ना, सबका डिजायर ये है 9 से 5 की नौकरियों पर कंप्यूटर के आगे हो। ठीक है ना, तुम हार्डवेयर नेशन बनो तो सही। अब जो बन रहा है, जो पैसा डाल रहा है, जो रिस्क ले रहा है, जो फेलियर्स देख रहा है बिफोर सक्सेस, यू कांट सॉर्ट ऑफ penalize him in the name of doomsday theories. Don't be that stupid. You are no different from that one political communist uncle who in the 90s must have said, don't let cell phones come to India, मेरे घर के पास STD booth है वो बंद हो जाएगा. Don't be that person. Don't be that person who stands against computers because it will take away the jobs of people using
Typewriters.
typewriters. Yeah, don't be that person. We are pretty much on that stage. Technology is evolution. That's how it is.
Oh, and if you can beat them, make a product better than them. That doesn't mean you should deny people the opportunity of using better products. My whole thing is, there is a case, it has to be on a case by case basis. I don't see the case for Starlink and SpaceX to be stopped in India. I just don't see the case. If you would have like the case for letting cars not come in India at a rocket speed made sense. We built our industry, we did it with other things, and now enough is enough. And you know what, eventually, if you eventually see that this technology is taking off, then you can give a subsidy to Indian manufacturers and not give that subsidy to Starlink, and eventually Indian manufacturers will become cost competitive. As simple as that. Simple. But to say that, oh, because, why are you letting him, we already have this at home. Well, why can't I have options? This is the most anti free market thing that I've heard in my life. You already have 10 car models, why do you have 12? 12 क्यों ला रहे हो, 13 क्यों ला रहे हो, 14 क्यों ला रहे हो? This is just stupid. Um, these are the stupid arguments that negative Nancy's make. Anyways, we'll wrap it up. Before we wrap up, Tushar, तुझे कुछ और बोलना है?
No, I think let's take questions. उनमें कुछ और अच्छे arguments आते हैं तो let's
क्वेश्चन
see.
नहीं थे, सारे वही रो रहे हैं, उनका घर बर्बाद हो गया है, इलॉन मस्क उनके घर से उनके 5 रुपए निकाल रहा है. देयर आर नो क्वेश्चंस. वी हैव प्रीटी मच कवर्ड all the possible questions that were there. See, people are convinced. I honestly don't care if people are convinced that this is a bad idea, but and even if the government backs out, I hope the government doesn't. I believe this is a good bargain for us because I know this product will fail in India. आई नो बेरली हार्ली बिकेगी इंडिया में, आई नो बेरली फोर्ड मोटर्स की कार बिकेगी इंडिया में, मगर हमको उसके रिटर्न में मुझे मालूम है अच्छी चीजें मिल जाएंगी अमेरिका में बेचने को. टू हेल विद इट, ट्रम्प पागल है. मेरा ये आंसर है,
No,
मुझे पूरा
again,
विश्वास है.
for all the concerns you have against Starlink, look at it scientifically. There is a kill switch with the government. Even if Reliance and Airtel were not a part of the mix, hypothetically, the government would still have a kill switch as and when it wants. If it wants on a district level, it will have it. If it wants at a state level, it will have it. There are jammers in existence. Okay. And that's just one technology I'm talking about. I'm not even getting into ASAT and all those possibilities. I'm not. बट ये अभी भी होता है, कोई नई चीज नहीं है. अब तुम कहोगे यूक्रेन में ये हो रहा था, रशिया ये कर रहा था. यूक्रेन एंड रशिया, यूक्रेन, Elon Musk was trying to give them the services, but even later on he just deactivated some of the user terminals there. Your phone, most of your high-end iPhones are now as good as any user terminal because they can catch signals from the satellite, but doesn't mean the government can't screw them when shit hits the roof.
Yeah, and people who are concerned about technology, they can always resort to singing Kabutar Ja Ja Ja. There is that technology available which is unique. And in fact पाकिस्तान में बहुत बड़ा क्राइसिस हो गया था एक बार, याद है? वो पाकिस्तान वाला बोला था, "ओए मेरे कबूतर तो वापस भेज दो." I don't know how many people remember that case of the Pakistani across the border. बेचारे के कबूतर इंडिया में आ रहे थे, उन्होंने, हम लोग ने बोला ये स्पाई कर रहा है हमारे ऊपर, हमने कबूतर भी रोक दिए थे. हम इतने हॉक है नेशनल सिक्योरिटी में मित्रों, हमने पाकिस्तानी कबूतर भी नहीं जाने दिए वापस.
I mean, it's just lack of science and discourse. That's all.
नहीं, and
And
for people for if people don't remember the Pakistani kabutar story, this was the real thing by the way. इसके पहले कि लोग मुझे बोले कि मैं ये फेंक रहा हूँ, ये रियल स्टोरी है. देखो, पाकिस्तानी विलेजर अर्जेस इंडिया टू रिटर्न स्पाई पिजन. इंडिया ने बेचारे कबूतर
and while we are speaking, the Punjab government has started demolishing the tents on the Shambhu border of the
I know,
protesters. So
I
always
know.
remember, the government gives a long rope, but
Uh,
it's always in control. I mean, it may not
yes,
appear like that on Twitter, but things work very differently in Delhi, up
मगर भाई
close.
हमारी गवर्नमेंट को कुछ नहीं आता, सिर्फ ट्विटर के लोगों को आता है, और उनको बहुत बहुत सारा इंटरनेट नहीं यूज करना. स्टारलिंक का भाई तू ना यूज करियो, मैं तो नहीं करने वाला
नहीं
हूँ.
करने वाला.
हाँ, मैं खुद नहीं करने वाला, इतना महंगा सड़ियल सी टेक्नोलॉजी. एंड आई से दिस एज समवन हु हैज एक्चुअली यूज्ड स्टारलिंक. इट इज
Oh, you have.
शिट.
Acha.
इट इज शिट. ओके,
It
हाँ,
doesn't even
स्पीड भी अच्छी
guarantee
है.
you very high speeds. It doesn't even guarantee you very high speeds. It's just normal stuff.
बकवास. इट इज बकवास. स्टारलिंक इज थर्ड क्लास. यूज किया हुआ आदमी से बात कर रहे हो, तुमने तो यूज भी नहीं किया और उसको हवा बना रहे हो. मैंने तो यूज किया है साले को. इतना बकवास है, नहीं चाहिए स्टारलिंक मेरे को. वो मेरा
तुम्हारे
फाइबर ऑप्टिक
चारुका के
नेटवर्क ही अच्छा है.
डोनेशंस पे नजर है इलॉन मस्क की.
यस, Elon Musk की पूरी नजर है. Anyway, चलो, we'll wrap up, guys. So the Tushar's X handle is there in the description. Go follow him on X. सारी गालियां इसको देना, इसको बोलना तू देशद्रोही है, तुझे Elon Musk का दलाल है तू, तूने Elon Musk के पैसे खाए हैं, Elon Musk ने तुझे UPI पे 1-1 रुपया भेजा है. सारी गालियां देना इसको, और मुझे भी लिखना कमेंट सेक्शन में नीचे. Anyways, बाकी if you want to support this podcast, do consider joining the membership program of this podcast. इसीलिए this podcast is not sponsored by Starlink and SpaceX, और मैं उनकी ads नहीं करता. And if anything else, go buy my book Nastic, or you can buy the Cārvāka podcast merchandise. All the links, every single link is there in the description of the podcast. If you don't do it, your favorite IPL team will lose, or RCB might win, which could be the worst thing for the history of the IPL. We don't want RCB to win, because if RCB wins, all the jokes stop. So do the right thing. Go make me rich by buying my t-shirts, buying my books, sending me donations on UPI or on Interac Canada. If you can't do anything, just keep watching the content and writing your comments or liking it on the audio platform. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.